Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get to our guests here, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Lindsey Whittle on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Indiana, and she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and to also discuss everything health and fitness that we like to talk about with our guests. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Lindsey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to kind of dive into all these questions that you have.
Absolutely. So, I gotta say, before we really get started with the real questions, what is the weather like in Indiana today?
It is sunny and 82, so it's pretty nice. We haven't had rain for a while, so we live in a brand new neighborhood, so everyone's out watering the grass. So as I'm walking, it's dodge the sprinklers.
Yeah. No, I mean, we literally, so it's the exact opposite. I mean, it's about 70 degrees and a little cloudy day, which I mean, for my skin tone is absolutely perfect. I mean, I don't have to worry about, going outside and just getting blistered up. But yeah, we just had a really huge rainstorm last night as well. But before I depress everyone with all of that talk, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory of what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and adapt this lifestyle?
Yeah, so I have been kind of active my entire life. I danced for 12 and a half years. I was a cheerleader for 4 years. And then once I got into college, I completely feared the whole freshman 15. So, I discovered the gym at my local university here at University of Indianapolis. And I kind of started out just being the cardio bunny. I ended up running for hours. I got shin splints, and then I kind of discovered dumbbells. I was a server and manager at a time at a local barbecue restaurant, and my boss was like, you're really competitive, and you're starting to go to the gym a whole lot. And he goes, I think you should do a fitness competition. And I was like, what in the world is that? So he took me to my first bodybuilding competition in Kentucky. It was the Natural Kentucky competition in Louisville. And I saw everyone on the stage. And from being a dancer and cheerleader, I was someone who loved being in front of people. So I was all about that. And so from then on, I hired myself my first coach and started diving into my first bikini prep. And that's kind of how I fell in love with the entire industry.
Please don't tell me that you were still working at that barbecue place when you were on prep, because I could imagine that would be almost impossible for me.
I was not.
Okay.
I was working at a pizza place. And at the time, I did follow just a meal plan. So it was kind of nice at first just to know exactly what I needed to eat. However, I kind of transitioned into the macronutrition. So if I want a piece of pizza, I can definitely make that work.
Yeah, well, and that's so awesome because a lot of people, I mean, they don't realize all these different variations of diets that exist. I mean, they honestly just think, if I just don't eat as much, I can lose weight, or if I, follow, if it fits your macros, or if I follow, all these other types. But yeah, it really just is so individualized. And that kind of leads me into the first question that I love to ask all my health and fitness guests is, I mean, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, I mean, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little minute things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started, sort of figuring out what really worked best for your body? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what did you train for this body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
Exactly. So the biggest thing, like with results that I've learned, is just progressive overload throughout the entire time of someone's fitness journey, especially whether or not their nutrition is going to play into that as well too. If they want to adhere to a more of a fat loss plan, following a specific like macronutrient, higher protein goal, would adhere to that as well. It's just when I first started, it was kind of just like trial and error with everything. I just kind of hired a coach and I was like, tell me what to do and I'll do that. But I've learned over time that, just eating chicken and broccoli and rice every day of my life is something that's not going to be sustainable for me. I try to tell people that, they have to find something that they enjoy as well too to see progress in that area. They're not going to be completely miserable and they're not going to want to put the time into it if they don't enjoy it either. So if you don't put the time and energy forward, you're probably not going to see the results that you want to see as well.
Unless you're one of those weird genetic freaks, which I mean, we've had a couple of them on the podcast, and I just hate.
Yeah.
I hate those people with a passion. I mean, we had one girl who I was talking about, like she was just absolutely, like one of those people where you could go to the gym like once a week and she would just look better than, 99% of the people that go there 7 days a week. And I told her, I was like, okay, what is your secret? And she goes, I was just born with it. And she had a photo like right next to her when she was like 10 years old and she had like an 8-pack. And I was like, okay, get off my podcast. It's like, it's not even
Yeah.
fair. It's like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. But that also leads me perfectly into the next question that I love to ask, because everyone's genetics are differently. I mean, I always say everyone has that one body part when they start to go to the gym that really, really takes off. And everyone always has that one body part that, I mean, just drags behind, that they need to just train to overdrive to get to catch up. I'll give you my examples first. I mean, for me, my back, just because all throughout college, I had a lot of warehouse jobs where, I mean, you were lifting and loading stuff into trucks. And I mean, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those were basically the two options that were presented to you. But I'm also 6'3". So, I mean, my legs and my lower body are just shot where, I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to get them to look like any semblance like I work them. I mean, I still have my friends, when I walk into the gym, even nowadays, who just say, hey, Ryan, you plan on working out legs anytime this year? And then I have to go, haha, you guys are so funny. It's the first time I've heard that. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
For me, when I was getting started, a lot of it is my lats, being a female, the types of training that I have to work on. I have kind of transitioned into the idea of doing a figure competition here in the next few years with my glutes as well too. A lot of females can find, or they say, oh, well, I'm really quad dominant. I'm extremely quad dominant. So they have a hard time growing their glutes or working on their lat spread as well too. So that's kind of where those different types of muscle fibers, different types of training. You have your type 2 and your type 1 muscle fibers. So using those different training techniques, your low reps, and then you have your high reps as well too. So just really transitioning into those mind muscle connections during your training program, just to try to make those grow. So I do a lot of like activation movements before I do my actual training, just so I can really focus on that muscle that I'm trying to improve.
And for everyone out there wondering why she said in a couple of years competing, because we have to mention it out there that she is pregnant right now. So obviously, if she's getting ready to go on a prep right now, that would be kind of an interesting thing to talk about. But yeah. So first of all, congratulations on that, and we'll get to talking about that a little bit later on in the podcast. But yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to throw that out there, and I always say for me, I mean, my calves too are probably the number one thing that I hate the most, because that is so genetic. Where I mean, I could train calves every day of the week, and I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know why, but being a dancer, I bet you don't have that problem. But it's just, for me, that just deep down is really something that I struggle with. But how long into working out? I mean, like you said, you had that you had that person who really introduced you into the fitness shows. But how long into your journey when you started really taking things seriously with the weights before you competed in your first show?
So it would have been 2 years. So my first kind of like 2 years of college, I just spent my time in the gym. Like I said, I wanted to try not to gain those 15 pounds being a freshman. I kind of just like experimented, followed everyone on Instagram, Facebook, tried to figure out what workouts worked for me, where I quote unquote felt it the most. And I just kind of kept doing cardio and cardio. I would probably spend 2 or 3 hours a day in the gym, and I just kind of like found a passion for that. It was a really good stress relief for me before I actually started to dive in and be like, okay, I need to find a set routine for me. I need to actually figure out how much cardio I need to do and how much I actually need to eat. And it really kind of just digging deep into like the science of things, figuring out, okay, weight loss is actually, calories in versus calories out. So I really started to track my food and track my intake, really watch everything. And then that's just kind of where I started being serious. And when I decided to sign up for a prep, it was like, okay, game time. My head's down and I'm running for it, full force.
When it came down to the nutrition and the foods that you had to eat, I mean, what would you say is probably the biggest nutritional change that you made when you started to adapt this lifestyle?
The amount of protein that I was eating, I know the GRI intake is very low when it comes to actual amounts of protein that people do need to like survive and kind of maintain their current muscle mass. But for me, I needed to put on muscle. And for the current amount of muscle that I had, I was not eating a whole lot of protein at all. So it was kind of really watching the amounts of fats and carbs that I was eating and transitioning those calories into a higher protein diet.
Yeah, it's for me, I always say for people that are thinking about making this change, I always say you can eat more and still lose weight. I mean, I mean, if you want to get someone hooked on that, you just tell them that because well, for me too, the protein thing is also another thing too, where I mean, you're just like, oh, I thought that one hamburger that I had, once a week was, a lot of protein, but then when you really look at it, you're just like, okay, I really need to stock up more on the chicken and these some of these shakes that they might be having. Yeah, that is just such a huge difference that I don't think a lot of people don't realize. But another thing is that 95% of the general public, I always say, does not have the dedication or the drive to be able to get into shape, to be able to go on a prep. Because just to be able to go on a prep, you have to be in such a great amount of shape already. Because if you're if you're just some average Joe and then decide to go on a prep without having that that background, nothing's really going to happen. I mean, you might lose some weight, but you're not going to really be able to compete. But I always say just that dedication, just to be able to go on a prep, takes so much hard work and determination. But going on a prep, I mean, you are notching things up to an extreme level where it comes to your dedication. I mean, it just, like you said, everything just becomes so scientific and so minute. What was that adjustment like from your previous lifestyle to now once you go on prep and everything just becomes so, like I said, scientific and everything is just so down pat?
So when I was on a meal plan, it was a little bit easier for me because I just had everything written out for me. However, it did kind of establish like a bad relationship with me with food because I was saying no to pretty much everything. And so like diving into like transitioning from a meal plan versus like just being a college student. I mean, I went and got Ben and Jerry's whenever I wanted, and it was definitely a huge shift. My social life changed a whole lot. I didn't go out anymore. I kind of just said no to like family gatherings and parties. I stayed home a lot. I was tired because I was in a calorie deficit and I was working out a lot. So transitioning from the meal plan lifestyle, it wasn't really sustainable for me. So once I got out of that show, I kind of transitioned into macros that allowed me to still go out, have a beer, and kind of reverse diet and kind of find that small balance between being a bodybuilder for a competition and still having a social life.
That is the one thing that I struggled with the most when it came to, adapting a more healthy and fit lifestyle and really getting into things. Was all the times when, Friday night would come along and people would just say, hey, you want to go out and, get some drinks? And I hadn't got my workout in for the day because I had classes all day. And I'd just be like, oh, hey, I got to go to the gym, but, I might meet you out later. And then, eventually you're too tired from working out. You don't want to go out. So, yeah, just that lax in social life is really one thing that I struggle with. And I think a lot of people have to realize, especially if you want to get serious in the things, is, just to try your best to find ways that you're still able to be social, because I mean that really is just really helpful for people as well. But when it came into getting ready for these bodybuilding shows too, I always say the number one thing that shocked me the most when I got this podcast started, that I would have never believed in a million years, but now I swear by it just because all of the guests that I've had on, say it's true, is that one of the hardest, if not the hardest thing for all these competitors that we have on is the posing aspect. I mean, for so many people, that is the hardest thing. It's harder than your prep. It's harder than your nutrition. I mean, I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always something that's ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
My experience with posing is that you have to start from the get-go. If you're, starting in your prep and you're not, 100% comfortable with how you look right now, like it's okay. Throw those heels on and start practicing. Watch videos of people who are competing. You can hire a posing coach. I highly suggest it. A lot of the NPC areas, they do have posing clinics that you can sign up for as well. That can make or break your placing. Like you can look phenomenal, but if you don't know how to pose correctly, such as in bikini, if you don't know how to spread your lats and figure, that's definitely going to take away from your overall look and your physique. So when I first got my shoes, I was not a heel person. I did not wear heels at all. And so I literally walked around hours in my house. I would vacuum the floors in my heels. I would do everything that I could to make sure that I was confident and comfortable so it didn't look like I was a horse trying to get across the stage trotting along in these heels. So you'll see people who just a week before, and it definitely shows. And a lot of the judges will give you feedback and say you need to work on your posing.
I cannot thank you enough for saying that because of the amount of times that I've heard people come on here and say, like, hey, I waited until like 2 weeks before my first show to start even working on my posing. And I just cringe every time I hear that, where I was like, oh, I know this isn't going to end out well. And thank you for saying that about the heels again, because I always say, the most embarrassed I've ever been on this podcast is I asked a girl from the South, she was from Texas, if she had ever had any experience wearing high heels before the show. And then she was just like, child, please, I was born in high heels. So I kind of realized that, if we're talking to girls from the South, they're basically born in high heels. So, I don't ask that question, but more than Northern girls, we get a lot of answers like that too. I mean, the heels, and I always say, it's like, don't these people go through enough already where before they put on those heels? But out of the poses that you had to do for bikini, what would you say is your favorite pose to do? And what would you say is your least favorite pose?
Bikini's a little bit more sassier, so you can give a lot more attitude with it. I just love the interaction that you could give. It's not necessarily a pose, I guess, but just like the overall feel of being the person taking over that stage. So a lot of people could say, "Oh, well, my rear pose is my favorite because it shows off my glutes." At the time, I didn't have the best developed glutes, so I would say when I look back at it, I'm like, I cringe. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what was I doing? Again, that also comes with practice and just muscle development over time. But it's kind of more like a side pose, so I can just kind of like get a little hip pop in there, show my shoulders, and then just kind of just give the judges that sass in your facial expression to say, hey, I own this stage and I'm here to win.
In the upside down world where if guys competed in bikini shows, I would say the back pose would be my favorite, just because that's the one pose where you can put your smile down. You don't have to be smiling all the time. You can kind of relax a little bit and just be like, oh, because out of all the things, another thing that I learned was just the smiling aspect, because we had a guest on from Australia about a month ago, and she was talking about how a judge told her that she might have won the competition. She ended up getting second, but she let her smile down for about 15 seconds at one point during the show. And that could be just a huge make or break thing. But yeah, that's one thing that I never really would have thought about. But now that I think about it now, that is, yeah, just such a huge aspect. But also, a lot of people don't realize with that posing is that some of these posing sessions that you guys go through, you get more sore than you do from your actual workouts. We've heard so many stories too about, after the show, the next day, some people are more sore than they've ever been, at any point in their life. So that's just another thing that I love to point out. But now, we talked about this before we started the podcast, but as you can see, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. My thick Norwegian skin, basically prevents me from going outside without an SPF of 1 million on. But I either get burnt to an absolute crisp, or I just, get farmer's tan, where, let's be honest, that's not a real tan. So I've never been tan a day in my life, but bodybuilders get tan. What is that experience like for you when you get that tan on? Because, we hear so many stories about how, you see things really pop out. You see muscles that you never even knew that you had. It's just such an eye-opening experience where, you see really all that hard work come to fruition. What is that like for you?
Yeah, so I'll kind of like dive into like the importance of a tan and kind of like the process of that. A lot of people just kind of think that the tan will do all the work for them, and that is not true. You do have to put the work in before you get that tan. If you don't get your tan and you step on stage, the lights, because they're so bright, will completely wash you out. So that's what they use the tan for. So it kind of counter reacts the stage lights so that the judges are able to see the muscle definition even better. So it really brings out the small dents in your skins from your abs, your veins, your back muscles. A lot of men and even some women, they have the Christmas tree on their back. It's a really cool muscular development that people get. I've never had it, but it would be pretty cool to see that come in to play. But the tan, it's something that when you get you have to wear black sheets, and you'll be prepared for that as well. Your shower may be kind of stained for a little while because whenever you wash it off, it will come down too. But the way that the tan works, it's like I said, it's unreal versus someone who doesn't get a tan. So it's extremely important that if you do your tan yourself, that you do purchase the right products that are going to be most effective on the stage. But most of the time, the company that the NPC show or any other um, show that you do compete in, they will have a provider, and that'll be your best bet to use on stage.
Yeah, I mean, and I always say when it comes to back, the one thing that I enjoy the most is I like to call it back abs, where basically it kind of looks like a six pack on their back, just because like when they go, especially when they're like kind of stretching a little bit. But yeah, Christmas trees, but yeah, that whole tanning thing, I mean, is just so bizarre. I mean, I gotta say, the first person that told me like really how it was applied and the circumstances behind that, I didn't believe them. Where I was like, you're lying. I mean, but then after about the fifth person confirmed it, I was like, okay, that's actually how it's done. But yeah, I'm not gonna go into it on this one. But yeah, it's really shocking. So anyone, yeah, if you're interested in that, look it up. It's definitely an eye-opening experience, or at least it was for me. But a question that I ask all of my guests, whether they be, my up and coming bands and musicians or my health and fitness guests for my bands, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to go on stage and perform live in front of, hundreds to thousands of people? But that also applies to my bodybuilders. What is that like when you get to walk up on stage and, show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
As I kind of like said earlier, I've always been kind of like a stage baby, so I love performing, and it is such an adrenaline rush. The amount that you come out on stage and you see the bright lights, you have people cheering you on, your friends, your family members, and the fact that this is your for bodybuilding, like this is your 30 seconds when you do your solo routine, like this is all you've got, all you've worked for, to show the judges what package you have, and that it's so much better than everyone else. Now, you can't like you have no control over what they judge and what they look for, but you just have to have that confidence in yourself and believe that you are a rock star and that you own this. And it's like a high, essentially, what I kind of call it. And then when you get out on stage with your entire class, it's like, okay, I'm here with all of these beautiful women who've worked their butts off probably as hard as I have. And then you also just kind of like build that relationship too with people backstage, and just being on stage. It's like, okay, so now I'm even in front of more people. So now they have to look at not only me, but everyone else who I'm competing with. So it's even more of a challenge to hit your poses right, to make sure that you are smiling, you're looking at the judges, making that eye contact with them, to keep their eyes on you during the entire time and not your competitor.
I mean, you also brought up, I mean, you're almost like Nostradamus. You brought up what I was exactly going to ask next, because I always say bodybuilding, well, specifically female bodybuilding, I mean, it's a sport, but it's the one sport I say where, I mean, just the athletes really do generally care about the other athletes, and you really do make these friendships, and everyone is just so supportive. I mean, just looking on Instagram, some of these people that I mean, if you want to go and follow, I mean, you see them make a post and you see so many just of their competitors that, I mean, in any other sport they would not want to wish them well. In anything they just be like, oh, hey, I hope I win. But in this, they're wishing him well, like, oh my god, you look amazing. Like, it just seems like such a tight-knit community, which I think is just so great. But how important is that to you, just that overall just community feel, that especially female bodybuilding? I mean, the male bodybuilders are friendly with each other, but it's not to the level that the females are. How important is that to you, just that community where, I mean, everyone really seems to generally care about each other?
Yeah, so just kind of like a plug, we don't have any of these, I don't know any of these questions that are being asked, so it's just kind of funny how I'm just kind of throwing these along as I go. But I love it. When I first did my first show, no, I didn't know anyone at my college that competed. So I was someone who felt completely by herself. And it was, you get most of society, they're like, oh, you bodybuild, like that's a lot. And like, I'd rather go have a beer and go hang out with my friends over here at this party. Why are you doing that? And it's to find other people who are like you, and to know that like it's like a 1% population when you think of it like worldwide. And it's like, wow, I'm part of this population that's hardworking, that's determined, that's willing to take their body to a next level. Now, it's not healthy, it's not sustainable, but it's cool, and it's a great challenge for yourself to do, and it's a great hobby. And so it's someone who, like, just to find those people, whether they're local, whether they're far away, and that you really want to just come in and you can just like reach out to them. And it's like people I know in Ohio, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to be in Ohio. Like, do you want to meet up for a workout? So it's like really cool to just create those relationships during that time. And you learn people's stories while you're backstage for hours. And you just kind of hear their process and like what they did. And it's kind of a cool experience just to know that like you're not alone. Like community in this sport is like everything to me.
Absolutely, and I was just making that face prior because she predicted again the next question that I'm going to ask. She's on point, and I'll give a short little explanation of why. And this is for anyone out there who's been questioning. I do not really genuinely provide people with the questions ahead of time unless they really like they really are specific and they really want the questions, because one of the reasons why it's called DD on the spot, because I put my guests on the spot. But I find that if you watch these talk shows like Jimmy Kimmel or Late Night where everything is just so scripted, where you're just like, oh my God, they know ahead of time what they're. I kind of like it where people, they get the general idea where they're able to sort of, say what they really want, whereas opposed, scripted where everyone is just, like, oh hey, they're gonna ask the same exact question. So that's a little quick thing, but yeah, I mean, you predicted again, like the next question I was gonna ask, which is, obviously one of the biggest myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this podcast is that, so many of my friends have come up to me and they've said, like, Ryan, we love what you're doing with this podcast, but they're shocked that, I mean, that look that you guys put on stage is not a sustainable look. I mean, we've had so many people that are just shocked by that, because I think part of it is because of some of these, like weight loss shows like Biggest Loser, where contestants go on there and they, lose 150 pounds, and some of them are able to keep off that weight. So then I think that the general public then sees shows like that and they just assume that, if you work your butt off to maintain that look or to get that look on stage, I mean, you're going to be able to keep that look. But that is so not the case. What was that experience like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, all this hard work that I put into, looking this way, but I am not going to be able to maintain it? Was that a struggle for you? And how has that evolved as, your career's gone on? And what advice do you have for people that are looking to compete, just to be able to, because we've had so many people that get depressed or they get anxious about that. What advice do you have for people to help them with that journey?
Yeah, it's hard and it is a mental battle for sure. When I competed, I got down to 93 pounds. And I started at 121 when I did my show. I was very, very tiny. And it was really hard because you get on that high of seeing that scale drop. You get so excited because that's what you look forward to. Like, is that scale drop every week or, sometimes even every day. And so you get so used to that. And if your coach doesn't prepare you for that, then you might need to find another coach, especially as a female. You can't sustain that for your hormones. I could kind of ramble on about hormones and everything like that because I'm now expecting. But at the time when I was reversing, I didn't have the hormones I have now to create a child. So some women are able to keep that and some women lose it. It's completely different in everyone's body. And if you are someone who is, planning to grow your family within the next few years after competing, you really need to make sure that the hormones are up there, and your body does need body fat in order to do that. So it's a huge mental battle, and I highly suggest kind of preparing yourself for a reverse diet after your show. Now, you can stay fairly lean after your show. It's possible. You may not be 5% body fat, or for a female, 11 or 12% body fat. It's, you need hormones to be reproductive, to have fun with your partner. I mean, you need those energy levels back up, and your fat does help, your body fat does help with that. And so just kind of set yourself a reverse goal essentially. So maybe not where you started in your diet, but maybe somewhere like in a happy medium. It's for you to kind of reach there, find that middle ground to where your body has kind of adapted to a good maintenance level. But you've worked your butt off for however long your prep was. So your body is already going to change. Your composition is going to be different. So the way that you put your fat on is probably, again, going to be different from the way that you looked beforehand because you've built muscle over this time. So it's definitely a journey. And if you struggle, talk to your coach, talk to a friend that you work out in the gym with. with me and a lot of my clients that I have, I prepare them. I say, okay, like we're going to get you low, and that's going to make you want a whole bunch of food when you're done. But we're going to have a plan so you don't gain 20 pounds in 1 month, so that you can get back to a regular state to where you're comfortable and you're killing your workouts even more, and you're still able to have fun and still feel good in the body that you have.
Well, and I just gotta say, because I mean, I've never been more shocked in my life when we had one women's physique competitor on, and she was at 2% body fat for her show, and I was just, good luck maintaining that. Anyone out there, and I mean, that's just one thing that, if I could, talk about most on this podcast, or if I could, stress the most, is that, you're not gonna be able to look that way year round. But now we go into a more fun question: what is your go-to post-show meal?
My go-to post-show meal, I've been a big fan of Pizookie. So we have BJ's Brewhouse. I don't know if you have BJ's up there. The Pizookie, it's like a pan-baked cookie with a big glob of ice cream on top. Recently, they just came out with a Fruity Pebble one, and it is to die for. I'm a big cereal fan. Most things that are like burgers are really good too, like a big fat, like not your typical like lean beef burger, but maybe one that's got some like fancy jelly or jam on top of it, or some onion ring or something fun like that. But I'm a big dessert person myself, so they make a lot of people do like cookies and like slutty brownies and stuff like that. So I tend to kind of do that, and then I usually go out to a club afterwards. So of course all the alcoholic beverages are included in there as well too.
Okay, I may seem like the biggest square of all time, but what exactly is a slutty brownie? I've heard that before, but I've never asked what makes a brownie slutty.
Yeah, so it's going to be a combination of brownie mix, cookie dough, Oreos, and sometimes they throw in like Reese cups in there too. So it's kind of like all of that like baked in together into like a brownie. So it's like brownie mix on the bottom with all those toppings in the middle, and then brownie batter on top, and you'll bake that together.
You're making me drool. God, I definitely need to get on that. But yeah, I mean, and I always said if I ever compete, I would just rent out a Five Guys for the night and just say, hey, here's the thing, you're gonna feed me until I either throw up, pass out, or die. But either way, I'm getting, my money's worth. But now, like you said before, how long into your journey before you decided that you wanted to help out others and help people with their journey and become a coach?
So I competed in 2016. So it's been about 2 years since I've competed. I really needed to get, like I said, female, my hormones in check, and kind of reestablish things like as far as like my post graduation, big girl jobs, all that fun stuff. I graduated with entrepreneurship and marketing, so I knew I wanted to take the reins by myself and be my own boss somehow. I loved meal prepping and recreating recipes for people. I kind of started a small meal prep company on the side. After I graduated, I was cooking meals for clients, so I knew like how much they were eating. I did protein, carbs, and fats. It was cool to help them in their weight loss journey in that aspect. I didn't have any credentials for coaching yet as far as nutrition goes, so I didn't want to take that next step as far as coaching clients. I've had people who reach out to me for help, and I would do the best that I can, but I like to have credentials under my belt before I actually move forward with things. And so I got my certification this past April, and I went through a company called Macro Missionary. They're a macronutrient based company for a nutrition certification, and I got certified through there. And I really just wanted to hit the ground running because obesity is insane in the United States, or just even globally. It's a crazy thing. People are so confused by all of the types of diets, the styles to follow, nutrition labels, what to eat, what not to eat. This is bad, this is good. And I wanted to be able to make things elementary for people. I wanted to make it easy for people. I wanted to show people that you can cook for your family, and you can show your kids how to eat healthy, and you can grocery shop on a budget, because that's so important, because you get people who think that buying healthy food is expensive. And I keep myself to a budget, and I show people that it is possible how to eat healthy and afford it. And it's important for me to show that you can go on date nights, you can enjoy time with your spouse, you can I'm a popcorn lover. There's popcorn there, and usually a Miller Lite. Count my name in. I'm there. And I make sure that I can achieve my goals while, eating and drinking those things. So yes, it's all about calories in versus calories out, plain and simple. Whether you choose paleo, vegan, keto, whatever, just calories, Weight Watchers, whatever you want to do, it all just comes down to how much you consume and how much you burn. And I just like to teach people that
Oh, hold on, everyone. We got a dog alert. I gotta say, whenever we have a dog on the podcast, I have to say because I'm a huge dog lover.
say
Look at
hi,
the.
Batman.
Oh, that's Batman. Oh, hi,
Yeah.
Batman. What kind of dog? What kind of dog is he?
He's a Doberman, kind of like pit mix.
So we have our dog. I mean, I was gonna say I have a Cavachon, a little tiny little Cavachon. Your dog would eat my dog for breakfast, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm the biggest dog lover. I gotta go on a quick little my favorite dog story. We had one Siberian Husky that was the most photogenic and most camera ready dog. Like it would literally hop in its owner's lap and it would like start sniffing the camera, and I'd keep most of it in because it was the greatest. But yeah, when
Yeah.
I was gonna say I mean, I'm gonna try. I'll edit out a lot of like his walking around because we could hear it a little bit in the background. I'll do my best to that. But honestly, yeah. Whenever we have a dog, like whenever we see a face or whatever, I have to pause the podcast because being the huge dog lover that I am. So that is our spotlight on Lindsey's dog. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's school time right now. It's like all the buses and kids are going by, so he's like looking out the window, seeing who he can.
Wait, has school already started in Indiana?
Yeah, it started. Some of the schools started July 31st. So it was crazy.
What?
They're on that like balance calendar now.
Oh well, we're still on the the day after Labor Day is when public schools start and everything. Yeah. Well, what time? What time does summer? When does summer start for Indiana kids?
Like June 4th.
Which is like the same time it starts here. So I don't know what's wrong with your guys' summer then.
Yeah, they get like 2 weeks of vacation for like fall, winter,
Oh,
spring
okay, yeah,
break.
yeah.
So yeah,
We just get like the 2 weeks for winter and 1 week for spring, and then like MEA, which is like 3 days. Yeah, so I guess that's what really makes up for that. But yeah, another interesting. See, we learn something new every day. I mean, some people start school a little bit earlier. But yeah, I mean, when I was talking, so I interrupted you when you were doing your personal training, but we'll get right back into that because I always say, it's just so important to have a job where you can help out others because I mean, it just knowing that you really change people's lives. And but what has that experience been like for you? I mean, I know you've just been doing this recently, but even back, when people were asking you for advice and just helping them, what is that like for you? Because I always say, you always see those posts on Instagram where it's just like, oh, weight loss change, and you see like these transformation photos, and it's so great for them, but we never get to hear what it's like for the trainers, what that change is like. What is that experience like for you, knowing that, I mean, you've helped out these people change their life and just really help them with their journey?
yeah, it's really a blessing to kind of wake up in the morning and you get a check-in email and your client is like, I'm wearing a bathing suit that I haven't worn in like 5 years. I'm comfortable to go out and go canoeing with my husband in this, without wearing a big t-shirt and shorts. Like I'm wearing a swimsuit now, where I'm walking up a flight of stairs in heels and I'm not winded. It's a beautiful thing to know that the advice you give people and the coaching that you give people really impacts them, because it's really about connecting with your clients and getting to know them on a one-on-one level, which is fairly challenging as a coach because, when you have 20, 30, 50 clients, you really have to differentiate each client and treat them how they want to be treated and coached how they want to be coached. So just to know that you're impacting them for better for life, and to know that they're able to run around and play baseball with their son, and the dads are able to be more active with their kids. People are able to just get up and down from the ground. A lot of people don't think about how just a simple movement like that can be really challenging for people, and just letting them know and helping them become more aware of what they're putting into their body. People, they just don't know, they don't think about it, they get used to what they're eating when they were 20, 30, but now when they're 40, 50, your body changes and your body adapts, and your movement changes as you get older. You get desk jobs, you're not as active, and you don't people don't think about that and change what they eat either. I know, I tell people all the time, like, I know food's good, trust me. Like, food is great, and the world makes it hard because scientists create food to be highly palatable for your taste buds, which make you want it even more. And to know that you can have it, but maybe once a month, maybe once a week, depending upon your metabolism and how much you eat during the week, and just so that you can reach your goals that way. And it's people saying that, oh, I'm stronger. I know I can pick things up. I can do a pull up now, and people can't, or a push up. And just to like, it's a really good feeling to know that you can help so many people, especially being an online coach. Just from your home and still keeping that community feel for them. So, I mean, just like bodybuilding, just so that they don't feel like they're alone and they have a coach in their corner cheering them on.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I got to add a little bit of my 2 cents on that because, I mean, I turned 25 a month from almost today, from tomorrow, because this is on the 14th. The 15th was when I turned 25 a month ago, and I admit, I have a poor diet. I will be the first person to admit it, but because I have a job where I'm active almost all the time, and I do work out, 4 to 5 times a week, I'm able to, maintain a decently good look. But yeah, I definitely need to find those different changes because, like, I'm slowly realizing, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even a couple of months maybe from now, who knows? Your metabolism is slowly getting a little bit less and less effective. And then eventually, good luck with that. So yeah, anyone out there, I mean, first of all, enjoy your teens and your early 20s then, because I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, going out and getting burgers and shakes, after football practice or baseball practice and, not gaining an ounce. And now if I went and did that, I'd have a little bit of extra jiggle in there, afterwards. But yeah, just enjoy that while it lasts. But now we see on your shirt, so is it Wit Nutrition that people can find you at?
It's Fit Wit
Oh, Fit Wit.
Nutrition. So that's my like small logo.
Yeah.
So that kind of ties into my last name, Whittle. So I launched that company in April, May, and I've been just doing that full time for now. I do serve part time just because I like to stay active. So I serve at a pancake restaurant too, but you can find me tell me about it. Serving pancakes all day long. It's sometimes a challenge too, but I get some pancakes ever so often.
I thought you said surf, so I was like, oh, she surfs in Indiana. No, but then I got surf, so I was like, okay, I didn't know that there were that many oceans in Indiana that you were going out to surf. I surf, but okay, so now this is probably the most serious question that I will ask you though, is like, can you even imagine probably the emotional damage that's going to come to your child knowing that he's going to probably be called Whittle Baby all the time?
Actually, I think no, it wasn't. No, I call it Little Whittle.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of gives like a little bit of a sweeter ride to it, but it's a cool experience to have a fitness pregnancy. So say or be a coach while I'm pregnant. I know my diet is going to be different. It's going to be changing. I'm doing a lot of research myself and kind of experimenting myself, but I know having a fit, healthy pregnancy is going to be different for every woman and for every body type. So it's, just like with bodybuilding and competing, it's so hard to, scroll through Instagram and compare other females who are competing and compare yourself to them. And just like with pregnancy, I mean, you see everything on magazines and you're like, oh, I got to be exactly like that. But, you're different. Your process is different. So it's cool to now embrace that next journey.
I gotta say, props to your husband. He was able to convince a woman to take his last name. I mean, that takes some major skills with the last name Whittle. But no, that's my last Whittle joke in there. I'm sorry, but when I first saw your name on there, I was like Whittle Baby, and then I was like, okay, it actually is kind of pronounced like that. So actually, hey, that works out great. But now, so obviously, I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below, and you can go and find it, at Fit Wit Nutrition. I'll leave a link to that stuff down there as well for anyone who has any questions. I highly recommend that. But now we go on to our last part of the podcast, a little questionnaire where we're going to ask Lindsey here about a half dozen or so questions that we ask all of our guests and see how our answers stack up to everyone else. So now for our first question, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Cashew milk.
See, I have always I have never tried anything other than just straight regular, skim milk basically. I mean, I've had, some of the like the 1% too much, but I'm just a skim milk guy. I've always wanted, because we've had guests that have, said cashew milk, they said almond milk. I definitely have to give those a try one of these days. I mean, I have had so many guests come on and say that I am gonna have to try that, but I always got to say, eggs and chicken are probably our two most popular answers, but cashew milk, I mean, that's probably been like our third time that we've had answer, and you're going to be like our 150th health and fitness guest when this gets published. So yeah, it's not that
Wow.
popular of an answer. So, but I really, yeah, I definitely got to go and give those a try. But now, out of all of your followers on Instagram, what is one thing that you think that they would be most surprised to find out about you if they met you in person?
Um, the most surprised about me? I'm a very big open book when it comes to my followers. So probably that I don't know. That's a tough one.
I gotta say, one thing that we get all the time is that a lot of people might be like shorter than they might seem like in person, especially for some of these competitors that we have. Where like for me, I'm the exact opposite. Just that's a big one that we get.
I don't know about shorter. Probably maybe not as like an open book. Like I can be kind of like reserved. Like when it's like comes to a huge like social party. Sometimes I just like stand in the back and like clean up my house while everyone's partying.
Oh yeah, so you're that one person. We all know that one person who's basically cleaning during
I'm
the
like a
party.
mom.
Yep, they're just basically cleaning the house during the party. So yeah, we found that. But yeah, that's. I mean, honestly, I do that sometimes too. I'm not gonna lie if I ever host things or do anything like that. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Don't be so hard on yourself.
I would say something like that too. I'd also tell them, invest a little bit in Amazon, invest a little bit in Google. I mean that would be a good
Yeah.
thing to do. But now, if someone were to come up to you and say, Lindsey, we made a decision, you can change one thing about the health and fitness lifestyle, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
The kind of stipulation of how everyone should look. Um, Fitness is a different look on everyone. So just so that everyone's a little bit more clear on the fact that you don't have to look like this person. So just to kind of make it so that you just have to focus on being the best version of you.
Yeah, that's great too. I mean, it's one thing that I really think. I mean, so many people look at other people, and it's just human nature. Where if you look at someone that might be like really in shape, you're like, oh, I want to look just like them. Where it's like we were talking about before, with genetics and with every other factors that come in, you won't end up looking just like them. I mean, it's just
Mm.
realize that do the best version of you basically. And for some people, I mean, let's be honest, some people are meant to have a little bit more weight. I mean, they can try their hardest, they can try everything, but just certain body types. But yeah, it's just, I mean, yeah, just find out what works best for you. I mean, that's just such a great thing of advice that I love to talk and preach about on this podcast. But now for the last two questions of the questionnaire, if we were to talk to a year from today, other than having a healthy child and just moving on with that, what are some goals that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk to a year from today when it comes to, I mean, your fitness brand? I mean, when it just comes to your personal life, what are some goals that you would like to have if we were to talk a year from today?
A year from today, I want to get this a fun personal goal. I want to get the roof painted on my Jeep. I want it to be all yellow. That's my next goal for that. But I want to become more global with my business. I have a couple of clients right now that are out of state, and it's fun to connect with people just through social media. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're in Indiana." And I'm like, yeah, but I can still be here for you no matter what. Just a text or call or email right away from you. And my the goal, actually, fun one, even better. I My husband and I plan on competing November 2020. So after I have my baby in March, we plan on starting our prep for November. So I plan on stepping on stage in 2020 of November.
Well, and that is just so awesome. And I mean, we wish you nothing but the best of luck on that. But now for the last question of the questionnaire, and this is a personalized one just for you. I mean, we've heard so many times. I mean, before back, like 20, 30 years ago, there's that thing that, well, women shouldn't work out when they're pregnant. They should just, work on the health. Obviously, that has changed so much. And, there's so many positive things when it comes to the resources that, people can have when it comes to, obviously, if you're a healthy and fit individual, maintain that when you're pregnant. I think that stipulation applies like people if they're out of shape, like obviously don't try to, get in really good shape when you're pregnant. That might not end so well, but obviously, work out when you're pregnant. Still be healthy because, it also leads to a healthier delivery. It leads to so many more healthy things. But when it comes to, as you get progressively more pregnant, do you have a plan already set in place of how you're going to adjust and change your workouts? Because, if you're going to try to be lifting at, like what you were lifting at, exactly like before you had a kid, that's not going to really add up so well. But do you have a system in place to really help determine how you can still make your workouts really effective when you're, say, maybe at like 8 or 9 months pregnant?
Yeah, so what I plan on doing right now, I'm in my first trimester, and when they say your energy drops, it drops. I have found myself to kind of reduce my weight, probably about 30 to 40% of what I would normally do, which then leads to me increasing my rep ranges. So, because I can't lift as much, I try to just lift more, so I keep my volume as high as possible. I've had to transit. I do a lot of kind of elliptical work, some biking, just to kind of get my heart rate up before I do work out. I do still climb the stairs. Anything that is kind of like chest supported, kind of like laying on my stomach, I don't do anymore. And plus, I definitely won't be doing once I do continue to grow. So I'll be kind of adjusting my movements, doing things that are more resistance band work, kind of, I don't want to really consider like HIIT training exercises, but body weight movements, using a lot of more dumbbells instead of using the bar, because sometimes like the bar you got to move around the belly, so it's not as complicated. I know a lot of CrossFitters still do their same exact movements, but they were doing that prior to their pregnancy. So definitely, if you're not a CrossFitter, don't go try to do CrossFit when you're pregnant. So just kind of sticking to movements that I'm comfortable with, that I can adjust around the belly, and then just really listening to my body, that if I am extremely tired, if my back is hurting or something is extremely sore, then I would lighten up on that, really focus on like rolling and stretching more, keeping your joints and your muscles loose and limber. Is really going to help out staying fit and active while still continuing workouts during your pregnancy.
And that's so awesome. And again, you guys, we wish you nothing but the best of luck on that. And everyone, go and give her a follow. And I know I'll be watching and here and now checking in and seeing how you're doing with your fitness journey, especially with your pregnancy journey. And we wish you nothing but the best of luck on that. But lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I want to give a shout out to my husband, Anthony Whittle. He's just been nothing but supportive with me in my coaching business. He knows I'm extremely passionate about food, recipes, macros, teaching people how to recreate things, and just educating people on this lifestyle, showing that it's possible. He's always been someone that just is right there in my corner. He's my cheerleader as much as like I am his too with his goals. And it's just a great thing to have him as a partner continuing forward with this business.
Again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. And everyone, I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And I've had, international guests on, and I have an international audience. And anyone, if you're interested in, getting advice from her, personal training or coaching, go and definitely send her a message. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan, too. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, here with Lindsey Whittle, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.